You know, a couple of years ago when my son and his wife were pregnant, the way they notified Ruth and I is they sent us a picture of them sitting in a restaurant with a bottle of Prego on it. My wife and I said, oh, it's cute, you know, they're out to a restaurant. Then they came and said, did you get it? Prego. What's that mean? We're pregnant. And I said, oh, thank God, Evan, I thought you were eating pasta. So that's the way you say Prego. Kyle and I are going to answer some questions today. One comes from a woman who says, I just feel bloated and Prego. I get it now. I understand what she's asking. You're asking away. Kyle and I will try and address those. Then Dr. John Trowbridge is coming in. Do you ever have a chronic cough and you wonder what role yeast plays in it? Bronchitis, cough, cold, etc. Jenny Herbacik, Nurse Herbacik, is talking about cancer-causing chemicals all around America. You can't get away from them. I'm going to teach you a little bit. What do you think? A few thousand people a year die from fungal-related disorders? Think again. Chocolate-dipped apples? Does that sound good? You're in the right place. Don't go away. My name is Doug Kaufman. For the past 40 years, I've dedicated my life and even my career to finding the root cause of disease. Join me in a team of physicians, pharmacists, and scientists, and soon you too will know the cause. So you have questions, and Kyle and I tried to provide you with a decent answer. So many people ask where you are.
Oh, here I am.
You and Kristen, they really miss Kristen also. Kristen went off, had a couple of babies, is doing very well.
She's being a mama.
Yeah, she's being a mama. Your radio show is becoming more and more popular. I hear all the time. Kyle's doing a great job on that. Now, every week or so, I try and go live on my own website. Many of you join us, lots of you join us, and you feel free to type in a question, right? And I'll try and answer it. Kyle nor I are doctors, and we can't diagnose nor prognose any medical condition, but we can give you our opinions. Always work with a qualified healthcare provider. In addition, watching Know the Cause. Maybe we can point you in the right direction. So the first question, is it possible to kill MRSA, methicillin-resistant Staph aureus, right?
Nice.
MRSA with antifungals and a phase 1 diet without using the antibiotics that doctors prescribe. Do you have any past program information dealing with MRSA? Ask Connie.
Ooh.
Okay, that's a loaded one.
Yeah.
And here's why. Staph aureus is a bacteria, and methicillin is used to treat it. Many people, many doctors are now saying, wow, methicillin no longer works. So we got to go into laboratories and spend $18 trillion and find new antibiotics because we're becoming resistant. So many people have told me they get MRSA and they've changed their diet and they've gone to a health food store and gotten things like olive leaf extract, caprylic acid, Doug's Duo. Someone told me that Frank's program, Doug's Duo, Frank Jordan, really worked for them. So this isn't about, this is about boosting your immune system so that whether it's fungus or bacteria or any pathogen, viral, et cetera, that isn't bringing you down. So I would look at diet, I would look at things like Frank talks about, beta-glucans, caprylic acid, and so forth, as helping. But you really need to work with a doctor here, Connie, and get their take on this also. What's your thoughts?
Mine are the same. My dad, when he was in the hospital his last year that he was alive, at one point got MRSA. And do I say that I snuck some things into the hospital room, or do I not say that?
No, that's illegal.
Okay,
so go ahead.
So I didn't sneak in colloidal silver, I didn't sneak in oregano oil, and I didn't sneak in caprylic acid. Now, it was hard for him to change his diet because he was in the hospital at the time.
Yeah.
But it is one of those things where I wanted to give him every opportunity to fight this thing off himself. And if that's possible, work with your doctor, and don't just not take antibiotics, but work with your doctor and work with someone who's willing to play this game a little bit.
Good. Okay, the next question is, what can we do to lower the swelling? By the way, what makes bread swollen? Yeast, right? I feel bloated and Prego, Prego, as in pregnant. I have polycystic ovarian syndrome. Yes, I work out, mainly eat healthy, try and avoid trigger foods, but I have so many allergies it seems impossible to handle. Ask Cynthia. There are some little words in there, like
Yeah.
eating healthy. And
what
I
I
know you
thought.
jump on that one right away.
Well, it's only because so many people who say so many people say they're eating healthy.
Yeah.
I talked to one person, they said, boy, I am really eating healthy, and they described their diet, and it was a disaster. If you wanted to create diabetes, if you wanted to create swelling, that would have been the diet to go on. All the while, they think that this is a really healthy diet. I'm not making fun at all. This is all you hear in the mainstream media, how to eat well, it's whole grains and wine. With something like this, Cynthia, I always think, you said it earlier, and I always forget these.
Dr. Tori Hudson
Thank
talks
you.
about this. Yeah.
The evening primrose oil and the borage oil or borage oil, whatever you like. This is unusual because both of these are omega-6 rich oils. Mostly we're trying to get more omega-3s, but this is an exception to that. Omega-6 helps to lower the inflammation in this case. Mostly, almost any female problem where there's bloating or swelling, those two oils help a lot. But make sure that the diet that you're eating is healthy. Try to take a look at the Kaufman antifungal diet and see if that might help.
Thank you, Kyle. The check's in the mail. Now, the next question is what? Oh, boy.
bless her
Oh,
heart.
boy, Meniere's.
Yeah.
Debbie, okay, I worked for a couple of ENT doctors in Los Angeles early in my career. And I'm telling you this just to tell you what happens. Some of these patients would sit in our waiting room with a bag to vomit in. I mean, their whole world goes like this. Meniere's, right?
Meniere's
Making you very, very dizzy, often an inner ear problem, so they end up in an ear, nose, and throat doctor's office, and they look in their ear, nose, and throat, and there's Antivert, and there's medications that they would use. You see, I tend to take a more holistic approach. When this is bad, it's the whole body with a W. The whole body is bad. I would certainly look at supplements that might help, like grapeseed extract may help.
Ginkgo and vinpocetine
Ginkgo, I was going to
together.
say, is
Those are
really
kinda
good.
nice.
And vinpocetine is another good one. But look at the diet. Once again, I'm going to let you take the lead because you've been experimenting with your diet for the past year.
Diet is everything. I used to be the supplement-only guy, and then came to this show, became the supplement guy, and now I'm the diet first, but then I've got a lot of cool supplements afterwards guy. Make sure the diet is right, Debbie, and then everything else will work better. The ginkgo, the grapeseed, the vinpocetine.
Yeah, and it takes a few weeks. It doesn't happen immediately. Kyle, thank you for
Thank
being
you.
here. I hope those answers helped. You saw my friend Dr. John Trowbridge is here today with us. Boy, I like it when you're here. Thank you for honoring
fun.
all of us
We
and
have
coming
fun.
in. We go way back a whole lot of years. He wrote a book called The Yeast Syndrome, important book. As so important, 30 years later, it is still selling and selling and selling. I don't know, maybe 1 million copies of this have been sold, and it should be. It should sell a few million more in his lifetime. I want to talk to you today about bronchial problems. People getting up in the morning, their spouse says, "Good morning," and they go, I'll never forget my dear uncle having to go in the bathroom and hawk and hawk and hawk and cough
Get it up.
Yeah, get these things up. What a great man he was, but that's the way he started every day. When he was at our house, you always heard that. And I don't think he was alone. I think a lot of people get up in the morning and do that.
Oh gosh, yes.
Some of it, okay, it might be what you ate for dinner, you might have fed the yeast, but let's talk about and so many of these bronchial problems, like bronchitis, are now resistant to antibiotics, to which
Right.
I say, is it a bacteria growing in there?
Oh, well, it must be because you have an infection, right?
It must be an antibiotic.
But, you know, people define infection so narrowly. It's bacteria, and it's a certain range of bacteria. It's not the others.
Right.
Although, you know, I studied medical technology before I went to medical school. And back then, we would have these unusual bugs that we had started to grow. Now they're common bad infections.
Yeah.
Things have changed over time. The technology of antibiotics overused dramatically, and of course we started on that 30 years ago in the book.
Hey, Dr. Trowbridge, you did a residency in urology.
Right.
Did you see a lot of closed down urethras?
Absolutely.
And so what you did is put a metal tube in them
Yeah.
and open them up, right?
Yeah.
Did anybody ever think, what keeps closing it down? And by the way, that's what we're talking about today. Just fills up with fluid, just closes down during the night. So what do you do about something like that?
The problem is that doctors are looking for a solution to an immediate problem and not looking at the cause of the problem. And so when you miss that, guess what? The stage is set for the next time. And the next time is tomorrow morning for a lot of bronchial stuff.
Yeah.
You know, we do personal pollution. We have, the air is just horrible. Well, you're from Los Angeles, you know how it's been.
Yep.
People smoke. People have other people's smoke get in their way. We use chemicals like crazy in our homes and our kitchens everywhere, okay?
You said be careful of anything in a box or can or package.
Absolutely, because it's not natural. It's going to give you a problem. We spray for insects. I'll give you a good example, Roundup for weeds. You know, Roundup is making the gut changes that look just like celiac disease. People are getting gluten intolerance, not from the classical way. We have all these things that are exploding. Now, the bronchitis stuff is just because these are mucous membranes. They're covered with a layer of liquid that allows you to sweep things out. Unless, of course, you've got something else like yeast and other things growing that then amplify the amount of stuff that's being produced to try and get it out. But nobody's treating the problem. You know, pneumonia is easy to treat, bronchitis is easy to treat, sinus, throats, all that stuff, if you treat both the bacteria things that's growing, and sometimes not even have to worry about that, the yeast. Treat the fungus because it is recycling you in the most convenient, wet, warm, wonderful way in your lungs, in your throat, and your sinuses.
And here's what's fascinating. I worked with Dr. David Weekley, a prominent dermatologist here in Dallas for years. And what my input into that practice, I think, was important because he didn't have a problem putting somebody on, you know, diflucan if they had a systemic yeast problem. But I asked David if every patient could also go on nystatin. It's amazing, folks, when you wake up in the morning like that, or your joints are so stiff, or you're so depressed you want to cry, another day, bowels aren't working, etc. Don't think locally. Don't think of the bronchial tree. Think systemic. I think that's what I got out of your book.
Exactly.
Think systemic.
It's all over. You know, the spider web theory of medicine, you pull on one part of the web, the whole web jiggles. You've got a problem in one area. Hey, that's just the one announcing it at the moment.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
that's why you get on the medical merry-go-round and go to doctor and specialist and drug and this and that. You get off the medical merry-go-round when you know the cause and you fix it. For God's sake, it's so easy to do. If I can do it, I guarantee you it's easy to do.
His patients love him, by the way. We have sent quite a few people over to him, and I get one a month, an email from somebody who just says, thank God for Dr. Trowbridge. He sits, he listens. No tools in his hands, he sits and he listens. And folks, your history is as important to this doctor as it is to us here at Know the Cause. It really isn't in a medical office, because he's got 50 other people he's got to see with an ear problem. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
It's a huge problem. He's addressing it. Thanks. Jenny Hrbacek and I were in Orlando a couple of weeks ago, and we reached lecturing on cancer. Today she's going to share with you just how many chemicals are out there. The government has known carcinogens and suspected carcinogens. Shouldn't surprise you, fungus is one of the known. Here she is.
Hi, I'm Jenny Hrbacek with the Cancer Connection. Did you know that 1 in 3 Americans will be diagnosed with cancer in their lifetime, and that you can lessen your risk by reducing your exposure to many of the chemicals in your daily environment? Simply do an internet search for the President's Cancer Panel Report, released in 2010. It's a surprisingly candid explanation of known cancer-causing agents that we encounter in our everyday life. Many of them are completely unregulated. For Know the Cause, I'm Jenny Hrbacek.
You know, at these medical meetings, when I talk to doctors, it's a pure joy. I mean, you would think that Doug Kaufman, if they watch me on TV, they may be a little annoyed. Man, you've been beating this drum for 40 years that fungus causes disease. And do you not see more and more in your newspapers, hey, fungus is contributing to Alzheimer's, fungus can cause ticaritis, you know, heart problems. You're seeing it more and more. People inhaling fungus can have miserable lives and get sick. And we're seeing a lot on fungus that I don't think we ever would if it weren't for Know the Cause. So I'm a tiny, tiny piece of what you're seeing or reading in newspapers or seeing in social media or on the websites. So fungus does kill. There's no doubt about it. And what I want to do the next couple of minutes is just teach you the resistance that exists, folks. There's some reason doctors learn in medical school that much about bacteria, and that much about viruses, and that much about parasitology, and that much about fungus. Could it be that because antibiotics are mycotoxins, are fungal metabolites, no medical school would teach students to be careful of them? I don't know what the answer is, but let's go through this. Fungus does kill, okay? Diseases caused by fungal pathogens such as Candida, Aspergillus, Cryptococcus, Pneumocystis, and others remain unknown, unfeared, and often undiagnosed. Okay, you got that? Isn't that interesting? We're admitting that Candida, Aspergillus, Cryptococcus, and all of these organisms can really, really injure people. And yet, every doctor should offer a diagnosis that fits within the guidelines of his training. But if he learns a lot about bacteria and a lot about viruses and nothing about fungus, he's not going to give you a differential diagnosis. And yet I think a lot of illnesses, if not most, I think 5 years from now, God willing, I'm still here, I'm going to teach you that most illnesses are due to fungus. I think cancer, I think diabetes very often. I think these major diseases are intimately linked with mold, mildew, and fungus. Time, I believe, will prove me right. But if a doctor doesn't know it because look at where this comes from, Microbiology Society, big organization, right? And they say, well, they remain unknown, unfeared, underdiagnosed. Oh, fungus isn't a big problem at all. Okay, now the next slide, fungus kills. Each year, fungi are responsible for around, are you ready, 1.5 million deaths, about $12 billion to treat worldwide. That's pretty good money. That's pretty good money. Only about 2 to 3% of infectious disease research budget is currently devoted to fungus in the US, UK, and Europe. Isn't that interesting? 98% of the budget goes to bacteria. We need new antibiotics because we're becoming resistant. Stop putting it in our meat, stop giving it to our kids like it's candy, and we won't be resistant, right? Use drugs judiciously instead of in lieu of a sucker as they leave a pediatrician's office, okay? But here in the US, 2 to 3% of the budget, nobody's studying fungus. Shh, be quiet about it. Okay, now look at this. This is a slide I put up for all the doctors and nurses to see at my presentations, and I get the biggest wow you have ever seen in your life. Why isn't this known? My presentations in 2016 centered around cancer and fungus, and I asked this question in the last slide. Why isn't this stuff known? Why don't our oncologists know about fungus? And look again what microbiologists say about this, and this is the big academy. American Academy of Microbiology, circa 2007. Read it with me. Fungi are the cause of many outbreaks of disease, but are mostly ignored. Fungi can cause a number of life-threatening diseases. Many people, scientists among them, are largely unaware. Okay, why is that? Why isn't anybody studying it? Know the Cause has gone down some roads no television show has. It's interesting if I watch the doctors on TV or some of these popular medical shows, nobody talks about fungus. Oh, every once in a while we see a little toenail, a little jock itch, vaginal yeast infection, ringworm. Nobody understands, folks, that major diseases like cancer, like diabetes, like autoimmune diseases seem to be intimately linked to fungus. Why are we throwing it away? Even the major societies for microbiology say, shh, let's not talk about that. Don't go away. I'll be back with you. It's cold outside, folks, and what many people want to do around this time of the year is give the kids a treat of some kind. Apples, okay. Chocolate-dipped apples, a little better. Chocolate-dipped apples with nuts, tremendous. Watch this.
Hey guys, I'm Lindsay Crouch from Guiltless Superfoods here at Know the Cause to do some healthy phase 2 desserts for you. Today we're going to talk about chocolate dipped apples. I love this recipe because a lot of time when you go out to say buy a chocolate dipped apple, you don't know what's in that chocolate. There could be corn syrup or high fructose corn syrup, things that we definitely want to stay from. But when you make them yourself at home, they can actually be really healthful. We're just gonna use green apples. This is unsweetened chocolate that we just chopped up. We bought a bar of unsweetened chocolate. I think it's just, you know, baker's chocolate. Chopped it up and we melted it over a double boiler. It's just a saucepan with about 1 inch or 2 of water that just simmers and your chocolate will melt down, and you want to constantly stir it while it's melting so that it doesn't burn on the bottom. And then we sweetened our chocolate. You can use xylitol or stevia. Xylitol is going to give you a little bit of like a texture, kind of like a crystallized kind of a bite, a crystally bite in your chocolate, and stevia will be a little smoother. So if you'd like to kind of bite into a little bit of like that sugary, you know, sweetness, then use the xylitol, and if you want it to be more smooth, you can use the stevia. Starting with our apples, you can either take the stem off of the top, and if that's a little too hard, then you can just flip it over to put your stick in. We'll do one of each way so you can see them. I've also used a knife before to put a slit down in the core if it's too hard to get the stick in, but that was pretty easy. So that one was flipped over, and we'll do this one on top where the stem was. Pretty simple. Now we're gonna take our chocolate and just do about, you know, 2/3 of the apple with the chocolate. And you kind of swirl it up to get any excess off. Just kind of swirl it around and it'll just drip off. That way they'll dry faster too if there's not a big coating of chocolate on there. And then we're going to take it over to some chopped almonds. So this will be our candy chocolate apple with nuts. You can use almonds, you can use pecans, you can use cashews, but just don't use peanuts or pistachios because those are not on the phase 1 or phase 2 diet. Just kind of roll it around. We're just gonna do a little bit of decorating there on the bottom half, which is real pretty, not to do the whole thing. Let's see. Okay. And then we'll just let those dry here. And this one, we're gonna do just with chocolate. If per se, you know, someone has a nut allergy or doesn't like nuts, they just want the chocolate and the apple. And if you need to use your spatula to say coat your apple, you can do that too, rather than just rolling it in the chocolate. Get some of that excess off there. And if you want to put down a piece of parchment paper or wax paper on your plate, that'll really help these pull off very easily. Now that really is a healthful dessert. Chocolate is full of antioxidants and flavonoids. There's nothing bad here. This is all really good food. I hope that you'll make these this holiday season. And if you're, if you don't want to bite into that apple on the stick, you can just cut it with a knife. You can kind of quarter these off and make them really easy to eat. Okay, guys, happy holidays. Enjoy these chocolate dipped apples. Bye-bye.
Watching Lindsay make those apples reminded me, did your mom used to make caramel-coated apples, right? My brother and I used to look around the kitchen and take tablespoons, eat that caramel, and Mom would come back and say, wow, it's evaporating. I think Mom knew, but there's something about the caramel, there's something about the cocoa, the chocolate, that really lights kids up. To heck with the apple. We just want the covering on it, okay? Thank you so much, Kyle, for being with us today. Thank you so much, Lindsay. And by the way, when Dr. Trowbridge was talking about bronchitis, I had dinner the other night with a pulmonary specialist, a wonderful doctor who is contending a huge number of his patients don't have bacterial infections in the lungs, although his peers believe they do. Guess what they have? Yeast. God bless you, folks. See you next time. Bye-bye.